Welcome everyone to another installment of the Fearless Disruptors Roundtable, brought to you by the Conscious Leadership Network. Look at everyone here today. We took a little holiday break and we are back with a fire. Today we are talking about education, disrupting education, and sharing our thoughts, ideas, experiences, and visions for the disruption of education on the planet, I would say, if we were to go to the biggest picture. And if you're not familiar with the Conscious Leadership Network, it is a new collaboration network that is all about passion and disruption and true connection. And my name is Jeremy Lastman. I'm happy to be here and happy to be joined by all of these wonderful people. And we'll just start by going around and I guess doing a quick introduction. We'll just go in order of what we see on screen. So Palace, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Palace Dame, and I do integrative energy medicine, and I'm the founder of Authority Establishment and the Conscious Leadership Network. And super excited to be here today with everybody. And how about, Dawn, why don't you go next since Xavier just popped in?
All righty. Hi, everybody. I'm Dawn Phoenix, and I am a life purpose coach and a hypnotherapist. And I work with people to help them identify and move into their life purposes. I'm a little bit new to CLN here, but I'm loving the community and very excited for the things we have going on.
Awesome.
Lovely.
Alex, how about you?
Hi, my name is Alex TV. But the easiest way to summarize what I do is a psycho-emotional guide. I do that primarily through just an organic protocol that's developed over the past couple of years. It includes box power remedies, EFT or tapping, neuro-linguistic programming, talk therapy or Jungian style arts work, and then my primary certification is in the completion process.
Lovely. Xavier, hello.
What's happening? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yay. Well, I'm Xavier Smith, aka Mr. XL Smith, aka Coach X. I'm the one with all the aliases, but I only have one mission. I've been sent here to impact, inspire, and improve the lives of others on a daily basis. And you may ask how I do that. Well, I call myself a people builder because one of my specialties is just listening and being in the moment with that person across from me and just being with them. And then, if they allow me, I like to focus on alignment. And when alignment happens, beautiful things happen as a result. So if I either accept it or I create it myself. And I'm having some fun with that in these last few years. So that's kind of me in an essence.
Love it. Love it. And our Mr. Audio, Aaron, how are you doing? Give us a little introduction.
Hello. My name is Aaron. I'm a bit of a wild card. Background in business, a philosopher, a helper of mankind, a contributor of projects, and I like to show up and be me. Let's do this.
Love it. Love it. And like I said, my name is Jeremy Lastman. I am one of the founders of the Conscious Leadership Network and inventor of imagination technology. And I'm a former SpaceX technologist. And I really love passion. I am a studier of passion. I am an artist of passion. And I help people really hone and focus and find and enhance their passion. And this is really powerful because when we talk about passion and education, which is today's topic, I would love to just start and just maybe let's start with like, what is everyone's traditional classic educational background in terms of like schooling, degrees, just so we can get a sense of like where everyone's coming from in their educational journey. I think that would be a cool place to start this conversation.
Okay. All right. Why don't we start with you, Jeremy?
Okay. So I got a bachelor's degree from Chapman University here in California, Orange, California. And basically, it was an emphasis in entrepreneurship, but I really wasn't present in the whole process. Just saying.
Yep.
All right, Alex, how about you?
So I guess like through childhood, up through just after like university, I had a lot of performing arts that I was involved with: singing, dancing, acting, improvisational. So that's one recurring theme for my educational history. Then for university, I studied business administration with an emphasis in marketing. Shortly after that same time, I also I had some mentorship in business administration through like healthcare systems. And I also studied psychology and was moving in the direction of counseling at that time towards the end. And additionally had a lot of coursework in performing arts at university. Then I also have a 9-year career in the military, which taught me things about leadership, life, systems, getting things done, logistics, and some more basic engineering principles, and a whole wide breadth of other topics. And then also partially went through the Army Officer Candidacy School to decide if I was going to continue with the military career or not. Long story short, I wasn't in alignment with that type of leadership, so that's how I ended up making the decision to leave the military. And then, so as far as formal educational backgrounds, that's what I've got behind me.
All right. Terrific. Thank you. And Miss Dawn, how about you?
I'm fired up for today. I have a bachelor's degree in English, and I went to graduate school, and I have a master's of teaching in early elementary education. So I used to be a teacher, and then I went on to go to hypnotherapy school and become a clinical hypnotherapist. And then I have non-traditional, backgrounds and trainings and things like that. But that's it for the traditional ones.
Okay.
Good.
Great. So for me, I err on non-traditional for my education. I graduated high school, went to several different colleges with art scholarships. I'm the artist of painting and drawing, and I was a photographer in college for a while, but I did not graduate from college. The predominant education that I have had has been really shown up in life through my career choices and not being held back from lack of a college education, doing all the things that I ever wanted to do and making good money while I was at it. And then later in life, because of my own health challenges, deep diving into health and wellness and spirituality and very alternative spaces of energy medicine and quantum medicine, quantum mechanics, and all of those very, esoteric spaces. So for me, I am somebody who values life experience and values having opportunities to really have applied interactive, kinesthetic experiences in life. Because for me, that is where I've gained my wisdom, my knowledge, my ability to connect with other people. It was definitely not through structured education and having to memorize things and follow course plans that professors thought that I needed to plan. So, where Jeremy actually graduated, I pushed through for several different universities and just couldn't do it. I just couldn't hang in there. So I bounced and have always done my own thing, my own path. Xavier?
Yeah, I just learned another thing about you, Palace, that's got my my frequency all wired, because you mentioned art. I knew a little bit, but you mentioned drawing too, and so you got my interest even more piqued. But like my man down below, Alex, I share some of the history with the military. I did the traditional thing, high school. Thought I was going to go into the NBA, so I was preparing for a life in college, and life just happened to come in and show me a different route. I entered the military, and I did about 10 years, and I believe that's when it's a funny thing, because I had the notion that once I graduated high school, that school was over. I was lied to. Because my education actually began after I graduated, and the military showed me some lessons, some that I was in alignment with, most I was not, and as a result, I entered the entrepreneurial space, started doing what I do since about 2007, and I'm I decided to concentrate on having fun and connection, and to this day, I love just the process of learning. So I guess I'm more in the space of the non-traditional, like most of us here, and having fun with just connecting and learning as I go. So I'm an eternal learner, is what I like to consider myself. So, and the fun has just begun.
And Aaron.
Hello. I'm back. So my traditional education started in Head Start. Then I went to a small 3-room schoolhouse for most of elementary. Did quite well in junior high, graduated high school with honors, studying things like computer science, ceramics, English. Went on, when I was about 35, I went back to college, got an associate's degree in IT, and my bachelor's degree in business with a focus on digital communications and e-business. Experientially, got some certifications through work, including Train the Trainer in telecom, and I got my massage practitioner certification through California Holistic Institute. And so those are the traditional educations, and lots of non-traditional, lots of self-studies in a variety of disciplines.
Love it. All right. Well, that's good. I just wanted to give everyone like the basis for where we're coming from, so that we could shoot off into our disruptive roundtable here. So let's just dive right in, and anyone who wants to answer can go ahead. But what do you feel are the biggest problems with the educational system, either when you were enmeshed in it, or what you are seeing now? Whoever wants to go first can kind of.
I'd like to step up for that one.
Hey, Alex, can you hold your mic up a little bit? It's a little hard to hear you. Your voice isn't quite loud.
All right. Yeah, I can try talking a little bit louder too.
Okay, that's good.
All right, let me know if it cuts out again. I can try something different.
Okay.
So I remember going back to my university, and one of my business professors, he liked having alumni come back to speak with the students about, what was college like, what are you doing now, and then he just kind of riffs you with questions while you're there in front of his class. And I remember he was just kind of dumbstruck, looking at me after asking me, Alex, what do you think college did for you? Do you feel like it prepared you for life after school? And I just kind of looked down for a little bit, because I was like, how much of the truth do I really want to speak to right now? So then I just looked back up at him after a little bit, and I shook my head and I said no. And he said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, really." And so when he asked me to explain it, I expanded on the concepts that this is like how big this idea is that I'm having difficulty consolidating it into a sentence. I think, to put it simply, what universities and schools teach are geared towards very specific niche topics or ideas. And when I was going through university, it was becoming evident to me that there were way more different jobs available than there were classes or degrees to take. And this was like not just in my my Midwest region, but across the United States nation. So that was problematic to me. And so that's the first thing that I expressed to my professor. The second thing that I expressed to my professor was that even though I was fortunate enough to have created some local connections that allowed me to begin expanding in a healthy business sense, I did not feel or believe that going through the university experience set me up for being able to adequately participate in those opportunities and those chances that I was getting. And so that's kind of where I had to start turning away towards something different, towards self-development, towards podcasts and old cassette tape programs from like Zig Ziglar, Dale Carnegie, Earl Nightingale, like that whole kind of early self-development realm. And so the not being adequately prepared to participate in those chances was the second thing that I brought up. And then we kind of moved on towards what do we need, or what do kids need to look for as they're going through or finishing their school. And I told them, I was like, look, if you don't know what else you're doing, then just keep going with this. Like, yeah, you might have it in the back of your head that this is boring or this is a waste of time or money or whatever. But like, if you don't have anything else in mind, just keep going with it. Because even though you're on this track, at least you're on this default track knowingly. And at whatever point on that track, you can make a different decision to either switch tracks or keep going because you see something else that is coming. So then we talked a little tiny bit about what you talked about, Jeremy, as far as passion goes, and how the emotion from students gets sucked out of them in the classroom, in the traditional learning settings. And so then I took some paraphrasing from different influencers and whatnot that talk about emotion being energy in motion. So then I took a little bit of that lesson and tried planting that seed in those students' minds of being like, look, this is the autopilot track that you're on. I did the exact same thing when I graduated high school and went into the military. I was in the military before I graduated high school. I had to get a waiver signed from my parents to do that. And most of my family's military, so they were like, yeah, rah, do it. You know, so there was plenty of support there. But I didn't know what I was going to do with myself in my life. So I just took the autopilot track, just the way most of those kids did. And I said, look, you're not going to know what turns you on until you finally come across it. And you might be leagues away from that, from where you are at the time that you find it. But once you get that sense of emotion that turns you on and something different clicks inside of you, start, even if it's gradual, start making those different choices to move towards that track. And so that's the essence of the third thing that I brought up with my professor.
I'd like to piggyback here and say that in the traditional, at least the public school setting, and I was just in elementary schools. I taught kindergarten and I taught third grade. And there's definitely a lack of teaching about emotions. And they teach us also to be followers and not leaders. So there's definitely a focus on, and a big part of that that I realized was when I was teaching third grade and even in kindergarten, when they have to take standardized tests. And they told us as teachers that we had to have a certain percentage of our students pass those standardized tests if we wanted to keep our jobs. And that was the big reason I didn't go back into teaching after my son was born. And when I stayed at home with him, but when he went back to school, I could have gone back in to become a teacher again. But I said, I'm not going to be part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution, because the government thinks they know what's best for everybody to learn. And so they put these random concepts on these tests and they make us teach to the test. And it's terrible. My entire mathematics was laid out in a program that I didn't have any say over. It was, this is what you're teaching today. You take out the piece of paper. Okay, this is what I'm teaching today. And that's what the kids learn. There was very little hands-on with manipulatives to give them creativity so they could stretch their imaginations, which is key in life. And they were not able to really work in groups together, even though I tried to sit them together, because the work was so just individual. They were just focused on, okay, let's measure what they learned today. And it was very little focus on creativity. And I think that is definitely how the education system fails us, at least in the elementary area, by squashing creativity, because that's where our power lies. So they keep people educated as followers instead of tuning into their own fire and trying to find something that they like. They don't really like anything that's taught. So therefore they just follow and go along with it.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to step in and just acknowledge both of you guys, Alex, Don, for bringing up and shedding light on that absolute truth. I remember this makes me recall some of my journey, like in high school and junior high, as a matter of fact. And it wasn't until high school where I really started to become friends with who I am on the inside. Like, for example, I knew I did not need a bunch of people around me saying yes or, giving me affirmations. As a matter of fact, my younger brother in high school, when we were going through high school together, he would say, whenever he didn't want to say no to someone, he would say, "You got to talk to my brother X." And because I was the one who was okay with saying no. And some of you already know I would have that fresh out of prison look on my face, and I used it to my advantage. So for me, I kind of was familiar with how I was going to show up. So it wasn't a problem. But going back to the question of what's lacking, I believe that severely what is lacking is the component of individual expression, creativity. My favorite classes was art. My favorite activity was recess, because we got to connect and we got to learn things. And I believe if you were paying attention, that's when you start to learn about group dynamics, not necessarily what you're learning inside four walls based off of a syllabus. And there was no creativity involved. The teacher was just there to get a check, and the students were just there to pass a test. So for me, I think that was what I started to realize is that, I didn't really come alive until fourth period, which is, I got to draw stuff. And so not everybody's aligned for mathematics and the proper application of it. Some people want to be entrepreneurs. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I've seen so much since I have kids. I have a daughter who's going to be 12 in a couple months. My son is 13. And just integrating them into the school system has been a real challenge for me, coming from my own personal background and my own belief systems about academics. I mean, for me, I grew up in a little country school, where the population, the town, it was a one stoplight town, and the population of the school was far greater than the population of the town itself, because my parents wanted to live in the country. And growing up in that environment was really, really strange. I mean, it was very academically oriented, but it was actually, it was flipped to, if you weren't a football player or a basketball player or softball, then you weren't anything in the school. And I've always been the perpetual art student. And I was always the person who the new kids who didn't fit in anywhere, who weren't a teacher's kid, who didn't have the same last name as 400 other people at the school, like they became my friends. And so I was, my experience in school was like Xavier, like looking forward to the art class where we get to draw and be creative and be with kind of the breakfast club of the people in school. And that was where I thrived. Outside of that, I didn't fit in. I was an athlete, but I wasn't a teacher's kid. I moved to this little country school from the city, and so I was never accepted, and I never could play the sports because of the weird dynamics that they had. I did track. That was it. And so that was as close as I came to really integrating with the system. And then so I went to college. I had my different college experiences, like I said, and I really majored in partying versus anything else. And that was, I did great with that part of things. But then later in life, with back to my kids, seeing, the educational system and what's available, it has been a journey finding a place where I feel comfortable to just plant them with the people who are ultimately raising my kids, because they spend more waking hours, like I guess value hours, with the teachers that are there, and either the collective of children that are going to be moving forward in a positive trajectory, or landing in a classroom that nobody wants their kid to be in. So we've been struggling with those aspects. But I think the things that I see so much, and coming from, being an artist, going to school with art scholarships, I mean, that's been me. And then having to plug my kids into a system, like, I'm very anti-establishment, but then having to plug my kids into a system that I know doesn't fit their personalities. It's like, just do this and shift this way and stand up straight, and okay, now you kind of almost fit into that model of what it is. And so, the way we've done things with our kids so far is we started them in preschool in this really cool little farm school near my house, where they grew up with, and it's a suburban farm school, and they have like ponies and goats, pig, and all this stuff, like in the middle of suburbia. It's cool. It's been here like for 50, 60 years now, I think. And starting them with that, just trying to get that other side of life experience. And then from there, seeing the elementary schools, I'm like, I can't do this. And so we discovered Waldorf. And so we put the kids into a Waldorf school. And it was a public school, but really, really love Rudolf Steiner. And, that side of things, and that raising the child from those perspectives, because in my household, we're super high tech. Like, there's so much Wi-Fi here, and I have so many stones and whatever to like try to like get, navigate the tech in my house. It's like, my house is like living in Silicon Valley. And like a lot of people in Silicon Valley will plug their kids into Waldorf because they want them to have that other experience. And so Waldorf worked out for a few years, but then there's flaws in Waldorf, where if you don't fall within this kind of center point, if you're too up here or you're too down here, then you don't fit into the Waldorf system either. And my son, he's definitely more of the kind of the engineer, didn't really fit in there. So we ended up transitioning out of Waldorf. And again, didn't want to do traditional school, so we found a charter school, which is a STEAM school, so STEM based on the arts. And with that was our best kind of cross section between not entirely leaving behind the alternative and not jumping into pure mainstream, but you still have that Common Core crap that you have to deal with, which is teach to the test, exactly what you're talking about, where the charter schools try to navigate around that. Their goal is to cultivate the whole child and bring the arts in and integrate the arts into, whether you're going into formal, like the arts themselves, like they would teach, for example, the way they taught like a hurricane is they would in like first grade, they would have some of the kids running around underneath, being a current underneath. And they would have other kids running around doing like this with their arms, making the waves. And they have another kid running along with like a boat doing this. And then somebody else with clouds, showing how these dynamic systems work before they would ever even talk about anything in a book, before they would even show a video. And I love this other way of integrating like what life is. And then they would even, like the goal with STEAM schools is then if you're going to go on an engineering track, if you're going to go into computer science or whatnot, it still is building in that art. The arts is still building in that right and left brain of how you approach and integrate with everything. And so that was really the best kind of mix that we found in the more traditional setting. But then even with that, I always have issues with anything that's in a system. When COVID hit, what we ultimately decided to do was pull our kids entirely out of the system, because we didn't want to deal with all the crazy that was going on. But then, whether the school is open or closed, on-site, off-site, this, that, whether teachers can navigate technology or whatnot. But having pulled them out of the system entirely, it's been very interesting because my core values have really come to the surface with. It's been about their mental health. It's been about what makes them happy. It's not been about, are you going to be at grade level when it's time to put you back into school? Like, it's not, I mean, sure, I want them to be at grade level, but it's been about how do we navigate life? Like, this is some crazy times in the world, whether you're in school or out of school, homeschooled or remote school, like whatever, it's a crazy time. And for me and for my husband, we chose with academics, it was more about not having their hearts break, not having their mental health break, and not having their views of the world shattered too by all of these complexities. And so going back to that more alternative way of integrating, it's really about the whole child and about the human spirit and not crushing their love for learning. But like, we're like so far out of the system at this point, farther out than either one of us are really capable of managing right now. And so we're talking to some tutors to try to help us on some of a bit more of a track. But it's just the whole academic thing, ranging from my point of view to where we're at now, and then my husband, who's a solid engineer. He's a very, very much engineering mindset. Us coming together, that pure artist and the pure engineer. How do we find something that makes sense for both of us? Where he needs the structure and I'm like, F the man, kind of thing. So it's been a journey. It's been also very eye-opening to how complicated this stuff is because of the way our society is structured and how these really important things are missed, with raising the kids and raising that social emotional learning and that conscious awareness of who they are and being leaders. You're right. Most schools don't really cultivate leaders because it disrupts the classroom. It makes it harder for the teacher to do what they need to do. It's like you can be a leader as long as you show up in this way of being a leader, right? So I don't know. It's been, I did a talk a couple months ago, live about education, and the topic was that education isn't always academics. It's just not always academics. And my personal life experience has focused on the education that I have gained through my personal life and interactions in life and my own social emotional learning, the things I have to bring into life, and how that has helped me to grow as a human being. And seeing that with my kids in these times, with the choices that we've made, that stands even stronger for me about that. I mean, we still have to foundationally support them so that they can plug back into society at some point, but like on the structured side of things. But it's a dance. It's hard, especially if you're looking at plugging back into anything mainstream. So there you go.
Yeah, I feel like I have you spoke to a lot of things, because I have a interesting perspective, because I think Waldorf, I don't know how similar, but maybe same time period, because I went to a Montessori school for elementary school. I think Waldorf and Montessori came from like similar time eras, I think. I'm not sure. I would have to check on that. But the Montessori school, from my memory of it and the experience of it, it definitely fostered my love for learning it. It definitely like inspired the sense of freedom and choice around having that curriculum or areas of knowledge that we were learning, but giving me the sense of freedom to kind of choose my own path and speed within the that they gave.
Can't hear you, Jeremy.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I just had a call. And so I can remember just having this like zest and love for going to school back then, because it gave me within the bounds of being a child and learning how to be a human, but it gave me some sense of sovereignty of like navigating my own path and choosing my own game and venture for how fast or how slow I wanted to go, and having the perfect motivation and ways in which, crossing things off the list and getting the excitement for, getting praise from the teacher, but within this like freedom of like working, like if I wanted, like Montessori's are all like, there's you work on the floor on like these little carpets instead of desks, and you can just roam around, and you have this like this freedom that really does it. And so I came from that private school background, and then in 6th grade going to this public school, for me the biggest problem, like in hindsight looking back, is in the most tangible sense was the effing desk was being locked, like literally chained to a desk for 8 hours a day, basically training the desk 9 to 5 mentality from that like early age, and I just watched the passion for learning and school just go right down in just hating every moment of it, and not even, like, you guys had the art and stuff, and I can remember still like despising everything about school in that sense of like being forced to go there, being forced to be strapped into a desk, and that to me is like in the most, like, if I can bring it down to the most tangible of, like, there, we could go into all the complexities of the teaching to the test, and like everything that you guys mentioned is so spot on, but for me, I think if you just take that desk out of there and you allow a free roaming, even while the teacher is teaching, and you can move, you can sit on a ball, you can sit there, like, and just have that, I think that would just improve it maybe just an iota of the public education system, because that to me was what drained me, was just that being so stuck and having this like ADHD mind that wanted to move and be kind of dynamic and all of that. And so yeah, that to me, I don't know, that would be a fun experiment, is if you gave 6th grade, 7th, 8th, what would happen if you just had furniture and cushions and just freedom. I don't know, that to me.
It would be a big difference, because one of the things I remember learning, Jeremy, when I was first starting to look at elementary schools for the kids and starting to meet other parents, was that, and Don, you can clarify this or not, but what I ended up really learning was that also the way that the traditional schools are set up is they ultimately cater to how females learn, how they learn, in as
Really?
much as the males have much more kinesthetic energy. Males need to move more. Males get distracted. Males get boxed in. Males aren't able to really thrive and succeed as well, because it's not that the educational system is geared towards girls, like the education, it's the structure of the school, and how you can like physically show up, and then how your attention's able to be maintained during that time. So that was some of the stuff that I learned about. Don, maybe you can speak to that a bit.
Wow.
Yeah, actually, yes, you're so right, Palace, because that was the reason my son, who's 13, when he went into kindergarten, we put him right into a Montessori school, because I knew he would never be happy in a traditional learning environment, because he has that creativity that cannot be quiet. Like, he has to do his own thing, and he likes to move and use his hands and create. And so I knew, because that okay, like a woman does, okay, sit down and focus and be receptive. That's our energy as women. And that's how the schools are structured, to have us sit down and focus and receive. Whereas the masculine energy, is more about the action and the doingness and the energy of, oh, I'm doing this now. But Jeremy, like you were saying, with the Montessori, it allows to, okay, I'm going to work on this right now on my mat. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to move on to something else when I'm ready. And I can move. And the whole concept, the key is moving. And we can't. Women, we tend not to, in general. I'm not like that, but in general, women tend to sit, do what needs to be done, and then we're very task, oriented. So
that's fascinating.
Something else that they do.
I forgot the original question. Oh, sorry.
No. I already talked. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I have a couple things I wanted to say, to address the original question, but I was so intently listening to everybody, I lost the original context of the question.
It was just.
So could you repeat the question? We're talking about the problems with the system.
Yeah, problems, lackings.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So the lackings, the problems with the current educational system, as far as I see it, and I've studied a little bit about education, and what y'all are saying is spot on. Everyone has their own learning style too, and having the correct environment where it's comfortable, social, and human, I think is very important. Like you were saying with the Montessori and the different types of school. Because the original structure of the school system was actually set up to make people just smart enough so they could hold a job.
Mm-hmm.
Like I forget who was saying about the making you a follower in school rather than being a leader, especially of your own self and allowing yourself to be free. You see the meme floating around, the little thing, you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree. It's really inappropriate because everybody does have their own strengths and styles. A math person, a science person, someone that's more into the biology or art, music, and every person has their place in society. So I think as the world and people evolve, so will the educational systems, with these other alternative schools, charter schools, that are starting to explore some of these different styles of teaching. And as we start understanding that, yeah, you can learn on a very individual level. So I find project-based learning, because when I was in grade school, they tested me standardized test, and thought I had low spectrum intelligence. I only merely had a speech impairment. And so I got to go to the program for the smart kids. I got to ride the small bus, and it was totally like that, fun and free. We would go do projects as a class in grade school. And so that really, helped me form my teamwork and stuff. And I think that project-based system, once it starts being a more mainstream, will definitely help fight those problems of the strict curriculum that is currently in the system that was developed to keep us subservient in some sort of way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking on that. And thanks for having me on the roundtable.
Of course. That segues into another question. So if you could, kind of maybe step into the thought experiment of, how do I want to paint this question in a way that shows kind of the landscape, is like, if you were to, step and be let's say the head of the Department of Education, and you got to, see and make changes at that level of the public educational system, versus how much actually, if we're talking disruption, how much of this is actually maybe more conspiracy of keeping people out of their power? How much is being designed for the suppression of creativity and power and to keep people followers and not to really realize, like, that is by design? Or what changes do you foresee could really make an impact on the top level versus maybe the community level type of thing? I don't know.
Well,
See
if
what
I were
happens.
put in charge of
Yeah.
the school systems, if I were put in charge of the school systems, made this, I would definitely gamify it all. I would take work out of the equation and create a situation of play. So that, yeah, the kid that likes to play with blocks and do the engineering and is good with math and structure, let him play. The kid that's gravitating the music, let him follow his passion. Yeah, he'll learn math when his cycle is ready, or he may never learn math and just be the greatest musician. So I believe that, creating that play environment, allowing people to play and not work, and not all work, test, and gamify those things that, we want everyone to be able to speak English and communicate clearly. So gamify that English class. Don't make the kid that's having trouble spelling feel worse, and now he doesn't want to write because he is a creative speaker. And that translation, I could go on and on. I don't want to take up the whole show, but to codify it totally different than, standardized test. Everybody, gamify it. Come on, let's play. This is going to tap into that emotional energy. This is going to tap into that child play. Jeremy, my passion is play. And so that's the first thing I would do. Gamify it all. I'm saying it 3 times. I know. Gamify it all and turn it into a play space with no curriculum required at any age.
That reminds me, I think I saw a documentary not too long ago, and it talked about the differences in the way we learn here in this country. And then they went into Costa Rica, where it was just like what Aaron is talking about. There was really no curriculum, and these kids came out like wizards because they were exposed to play. They were exposed to like group dynamics without the expectation of a test. And I was just awestruck by it. I think I want to move to Costa Rica. As a matter of fact.
Yeah, I love Costa also. That sounds amazing. It kind of makes me think of the school that my friend sends her kids to here in Colorado. And I don't know a ton about the school. She posts about it a lot, but it's a school that it has teachers, but it's run by the students. It's literally run by the students. The students design what they want their school year to look like. The students create their own government. The students create their own dynamics. The children get to show up in life and be able to think through problems, think through social situations, think, right? And so it sounds, as far as like going to a school situation, having that kind of culture behind the scenes where the kids have something to say about it. I mean, once they're old enough to really have something that they can contribute, right? When we're really little, it's like point you in this direction and give you interesting things to do and cultivate your interest and intelligence and whatnot. But like when they're old enough, having that autonomy, having that ability to have a voice, to be heard, because like as a healer and what I do, when we talk about the like in energy medicine and how things show up, like so many people have thyroid issues, and without going down the rabbit hole of this thyroid issues, looking traumatically back, it has to do with individuals not having felt that they've had a voice, some way to speak and some way to express. So the energy gets stuck in the throat. And so thyroid issues are just running rampant in our country for a variety of reasons. But just backing out from that, people feeling, it starts as children that I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to be heard. It's too scary to put my voice out there. Like they're talking about the desks and being chained to the desk, Jeremy, it made me think about like when I was a kid in high school, had a crush on this guy, and because we never moved around in the classroom, we always had our desks, and that was kind of our safety zone or whatever. And I got up in class one day and I'm like, oh my God, the guy I like is sitting right next to me. And I'm super self-conscious. And I walk to the front of the classroom and I come back and I try not to look at him. And I'm like, where's my desk? Where's my desk? And I find my desk and I go to sit down and I completely missed my chair and I landed flat on my back in the middle of the classroom, right by the dude that I had this massive crush on. But it goes to that uber structure that I had to be in exactly that space at that time, or I would get in trouble by the teacher. But I was so thrown off by that I like landed on my back in the middle of my classroom in high school, right? I mean, that's a different spin on it, but it's that crazy structure that doesn't allow you to flow in the situation of whatever that is. And so I love what Erin's talking about, gamifying things. Like from my daughter, challenges with her, like we started at Waldorf, and when we transferred her out, we didn't realize that she had a form of dyslexia. And so when we put her into traditional school, she was still in this more or less preschool phase of reading and integrating that in her mind. And the way that she learns best is through this other type of work called Orton Gillingham, which is kinesthetic. You move it, you write it, you do the stuff. If it was on an iPad, it didn't translate. And having that real world neuroplasticity, which is what we're missing in the classrooms. It's that neuroplasticity when it's all on technology, all on iPad. We don't write in cursive, which recreates how our brains work. We don't do the stuff. We don't integrate with one another. Like our brains are becoming smoother versus more rippled, more deeper crevices because of how it's structured, but they don't see that in the classrooms. Like all these dynamics that we're talking about are core to becoming human, just being what we are, not even.
You think we should still learn cursive?
I do think we should still learn cursive, because in talking to the tutor that I was interviewing last night, it has so much to do, not with having to necessarily write cursive on a check, but it's how our brains develop between the brain and what's coming out of our hand. It created the neuroplasticity of how our brains are literally forming, and this right and left meridian that goes back to the primitive reflexes in the body. And so it's not about the classic need to write script. It's about the literally crawl meridian work, right and left brain balancing. And the more we get away from that stuff, the smoother our brains become. And we don't want smooth brains. We want very, crazy looking, what brains look like. You want them to look like a brain. You don't want them to smooth out, is the thing. The more the smoother they are, the less is going on in there. So it's a new perspective for me, specifically about cursive. Like I've understood about journaling, that there's a very different experience of journaling from journaling head to hand to paper than journaling head to keyboard, right? There's a different relationship. And there's all sorts of studies that have been done on students who take their notes, the students that take their notes entirely on keyboard, entirely virtual, to the students that take their notes handwritten. Across the boards, the students that take the notes handwritten excel, have higher grades, achieve higher test results and such because of the way they retain the information. It's a different neurological thing. And that's the thing with schools, is that they're taking more and more and more of that kinesthetic activity away. And so many kids, most kids actually, given the opportunity, they need the tactile experiences. As humans, we need the tactile opportunities.
And to piggyback on that, Palace, the different learning styles, there are visual learners and kinesthetic learners. I'm a visual kinesthetic myself, so I have to move things around and play with them and see, what it is. And for people like me to have just someone wah, 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 that's pretty much what it was like, or just someone's, it's like literally one in one ear and out the other. If I were in charge of the school systems, there would be a total flipping the bird to the man in a very subtle fashion, but I would be gearing everybody toward mindfulness and connecting us with our bodies. And so I would start the day, I don't care what grade you're in, start the day with some meditation, to get everybody grounded, because that's what works on a holistic level for people. You know, in my life, that's a good thing. And then even if it's 5 minutes of yoga to connect their mind and their body, so that they're coming from a strong foundation of being calm and quiet in the mind and receptive, and then having had that movement where they're connected, so they're coming from a really open learning container where they're able to focus. And then I would definitely have it be more of a situation where it's project-based, like you were talking about, Jeremy, where the kids, instead of having a test at the end of a chapter, they have projects where they build a portfolio. And I've learned about schools that actually do this when I was getting my master's, and I really wanted to work at one, but there haven't been any that I had found in the areas I was living in, where the kids build a portfolio for each year of their education, and they bring it with them throughout their school careers, as long as they're in that type of a system where it's project-based, and they do a number of different projects, and then they get to choose the ones that they felt they did the best in, and that goes into their portfolio. So it kind of readies you for the concept of, okay, in life, there are things that I feel I'm really good at, and that's what I am going to bring forward for people. And you get a say in showing what you showcase as your strengths. And I would also definitely bring in an empathy piece, because an emotional intelligence. I feel that, we talked about it before, that there is like Zippo emotional focus in the schools. And so definitely this was I saw this a little bit in my son's Montessori school, where there was conflict resolution training. Hello, we need that in our world so badly. And so, teaching the kids to how to diplomatically solve issues with each other at an early age, before all the hormones kick in, and the ego and all that, just nip it in the bud. And it's not to say to teach everybody to be pansies and to roll over, but how to be diplomatic about drawing boundaries for yourself and respecting other people's boundaries, because that's the kind of world that we want to live in. So we need to start doing that, creating it there, instead of expecting people as adults who have been indoctrinated in a very warlike way for so long to just step into a very peaceful way. It's just, you have to begin with the end in mind.
Mm-hmm. That's
huge.
What
I would do.
I saw the Dalai Lama speak a number of years ago when I lived back in Seattle, and I was fortunate to be able to attend some side meetings or educational opportunities. And after he spoke, and the one that I attended had to do with a different way of teaching empathy to children. And what they had done in this classroom was, it was elementary school. It was earlier elementary school, early to mid. And what they did is they brought in a newborn baby, a baby just born. And throughout the school year, this baby was in the classroom every single day. And it was the children's responsibility to help care for this baby and raise this baby over the course of the year. And it's different than having, a brother or a sister as a baby, but they were taught the entire process of what the first year of life was like. And through this process, these children were taught to work together, to really engage in empathy for other living things, for this little child. It was really, really profound what came out of this, I hate to say study, but it was kind of a study, like what would happen with children taking care of an infant, for the entire first year of life. It was amazing. But one of the other things that came up in that talk is how, we talk about empathy and then the intuitive people when we're in these more like, the more alternative spaces, we do this intuitive work and whatnot. One of the big things though that came up in this talk is how when we're really young, when we're between 0 and 7, when we're still in predominantly the alpha wave brain state, we're all intuitive, we're all empathic, and we all can read each other's thoughts. And that it's once we start getting indoctrinated into the systems, into having to function in the way that the system says, we lose our intuitive abilities. We lose our empathic abilities. And it is shut down. It is shut down because of the systems that are put in place. But we are naturally, as humans, intuitive, empathic, and can read one another. And it's so, the conspiracy theory, the structures, the whatever it be, there is a reason for all of that. Because the more that we can understand one another, the more that we can communicate, the less control the governing bodies that be are, and whether it started with this big, big ploy against, cultural brainwashing, or whether it was, it's smaller opportunities to see how things control, it's like, it's a real thing. And so whether or not it is a conspiracy theory, it is in fact in play, and it is in fact shutting us down from our mental capacities from the time that we basically leave age 7 and move into age 8 when we move out of the alpha wave brain state. So there's a lot that isn't cultivated. There's a lot that isn't curated. That social emotional learning, the yoga, the body mind practices are essential because it is what we are. I like to say what we are versus who we are, because it's what we are, but we have forgotten how to be what we are because of these other dynamics that crush our own intuitive abilities, or our own internal navigation system. We're taught to question that versus embrace it. And it's so I totally agree with you, Don.
Yeah. And I wanted to work off what you said and kind of combine it with Aaron's play approach, and just share some ideas that, like, well, putting myself back there, the like project-based, like you said, and the navigation. So, like, for me, what I feel would be really, really poignant is, of course, it's the passion for me, of course, but also making it problem, challenge, solution based. So instead of teaching something because it's like we need to teach it, and you follow that, like, kind of that curriculum of, like, today we're going to learn this, tomorrow we're going to learn this, and it's just, that's what we're doing. It's, you start off with the problems, the challenges, the puzzles, the whatever it is, that it's like teaching someone how to fish, right? Like, the giving the student or a group of students the challenge or the problem, the gamified technology, gamification, all of that, like, excellent stuff that we have available now. And then it's based off of the challenge or the problem, then they learn what they need to learn to solve that problem. There's a reason to learn. For me, that makes it so much more engaging, because I have a reason to learn what I need to learn, because this problem is calling out for me to learn it. So it's like, you get this problem, it's like, okay, now I need to learn math in order to, like, do part 1 of this problem. Okay, how do I learn math? And then it's like, now I jump into the iPad and I learn math, or I have all of the resources that are there to help me learn math, because I know how to teach myself based off of the navigation system, the passion and the intuition are now informing why I need to learn this, because there's a bigger problem at hand. And so start as early as you want, and then I can feel like the challenges just grow, the projects just grow, and based off of those things, then the curriculum builds itself, because in order to tackle this, I need to learn this. Okay, let me Google, how do you do this? Let me YouTube, how do you do this? And it's much more an intuitive learning, passion flow play, because there's a reason, there's a motivation, there's stakes, there's competition, there's everything that inspires performance of passion when there's a reason. Instead of what for me it was so boring because I had no reason. Why are we learning this? I have there's like no reason, and that to me was the most disengaging thing apart from being at a desk. But you give me the reason and I'll learn anything because that makes it fun. You're like, in order to solve this problem, I need to read this book because this book is going to give me some nugget to answer this challenge. Bam. Okay. Like that's how that's my natural flow. Like that to me makes it play.
Mm-hmm.
You took me totally back to a story, an episode in my life when moms was trying to teach me how to, navigate change, counting change and all that stuff. And she wanted me to learn a certain way. And back then, I'm from the era where your parents could legally put their hands on you without repercussions, right? So I didn't learn as fast as she wanted me to because I had my own way. And so, but it was because it was my mom's, if it didn't go her way, then I would suffer the consequences. But it's a lot like school. They want you to learn a certain way on their terms. And sometimes you can have your own way. So it just took me back to that. So yeah, I definitely understand what's missing in the what is of the system of the schools as opposed to, okay, let's just put it out there, give you the resources so you can find your own way. I think that's much more profound way to go about the act of learning.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Awesome.
Oh wow, this is the awesome conversation. I just wanted to touch in real quick about the conspiracy thing, you guys. I'm a great fan of all things conspiracy, and also wanted to kind of touch in on how this has really influenced my thoughts on the school system and education. And all these things are so valid, but the point I was trying to make had to do with that emotional part and that empathic and intuitive, if you will, telepathic level of connection that happens in society and schools. Like you look at different universities and they're geared, this is a football school, this is a science school, this is a specialty school, and that whole society, that social engagement for the human part. And I look at the bigger picture with how the interaction of different schools and this group consciousness thing that we're talking about in some of these esoteric lines. And of course, with the astrology stuff that I know Alex is familiar with, the energies of the shifts of time and the evolution of humanity in a whole. We all talk about this 5D conversion. And the conspiracy to stop it, to the conspiracy of control of the top-down government system and into the new age of Aquarius, which is a bottom-up governance. I think the world's coming up on some big changes. I hope I didn't convolute the conversation too much through the conspiracy edition, but wow, I mean, to be a part of this group where we are actively seeking to open up that access and reawaken grown-ups and children into that intuitive, free-flowing, childlike, emotional, fun, community supportive space, allowing everyone the freedom to focus on their own projects, their own passions, and create their own, how shall we say, criterion and agenda in the modern age of schooling. I have spoken. Thank you, guys. Wait, Mandalorian, I have spoken.
This is the way.
See it if everyone's seen it.
Oh yeah.
This is the way I have spoken.
I'm with you.
Yes. So we're at almost that time here, but let's close it out with some final words from those who want to share in the vision. The vision of education empowered, or the vision of education solved let's just start with the United States. what does that world look like when the education system is, maybe less standardized to another brick in the wall and more honoring of creativity? And what does that do to society? What is the vision of that?
They're more human. I mean, that's the essence of it, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, school, education, training, whatever. I mean, most of it, I mean, a small fraction of it is genuinely geared towards, humanism, humanitarian effort, living as the being that you are. So that automatically puts, upwards of approximately 99% of all education and training down the toilet, out the window, in the can. So ultimately that vision is just to toss the junk out, which is most of it, and get back to being. Because, I mean, for simplicity's sake, we're called human beings, not human doings. And we're so focused on what do we do with our life. And this is the essence of what I would change from the previous question, is just return back to human. Go back to human. What are you doing with yourself? Stop it. Go back to human. Go back to being. Learn that first. And that starts to draw in on what Don and Palace were saying about bringing some of those more natural human aspects back into the equation. And then from there, as children are growing, then start giving them the chance to be exposed to what adults are doing. What we do is not the end game. It's who or what we're being. And the world that we live in currently is disgustingly less human than it was even 300 some odd years ago when America started. And the Western European cultures have had their own advantage as far as time goes, but they've played a large hand in removing the human from our being. And I find that repulsive on a number of levels. It's great, the kinds of things that we can do physically, intellectually, the things that we can create, whatever. That's all fine and dandy. But at the end of the day and at the end of your life, if you weren't what you were made to be, which is a human, and you spent your whole life doing, then, now we start getting into philosophy about, did you really live your best life? Did you really do what you came here to do? Or did you really live the life that you were put here to be? So that's my education system takeover in a nutshell. More human.
More human.
Yeah. I think that sums it up, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much. If we incorporate being human again, then I think too, a huge impact that we would see would be empathy. The males allowing themselves to have empathy, to have emotions, to be who they are, because males are really some of the most oppressed beings in Western culture.
Heard that. Shit.
Yeah. And that is killing our society.
You know, I for one am so like ever grateful for the awakening happening. You know, like if it wasn't for the current status quo, we wouldn't even have a vision towards what could be better or what is becoming better. Because I do believe right here, right now, in this very moment, we are awakening to what we truly want as a consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
This conversation alone is proof that we are walking towards a better place. And I mean, it's just so wonderful that we get to do it together. And you know, because we're talking about it and expressing it outwardly, just proves to me that that's the path that we're walking on. So I choose to stay focused on the positive end of that stick rather than the negative.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that I get to hold hands with such beautiful creators like you, you know? So I'm looking forward to the beautiful that's coming.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Yep. I think beautiful stuff. And to me, I think, you know, when education is more about passion than work, really, like really, if you think about education, the educational system, higher education, it is all about the preparation for work and becoming an adult and becoming a civilian, becoming a member of society, a contributing member to society, to becoming, you know, instead of what it means to be human and everything that that Alex was mentioning. You know, when it becomes more about passion than all of that stuff, I think it's a world with less disease because people are playing more. It's a lot less serious. It is much more innovative because more people are stepping outside of the box because they're given that from a much more early opportunity instead of being in the box. And you know, the arts, maybe a new renaissance of artistic expression happens because you know, schooling and education is no longer just about work and the left brain crafts, but you know, the right brain creatives can now be exploded because it's been an opportunity is given from a very early stage, and when that happens, I think it's just I think society functions better because there's no longer suppression, oppression, like Palace says, repression, all depression, mental health. It's you know, because education gives people the means to teach themselves whatever they want to learn, and when it's about passion instead of a test, that it just unfolds such beautiful discussions like this, ideas, inventions, and relationships and collaborations and all the beautiful stuff that I feel that the Conscious Leadership Network is here to disrupt and represent and role model. And I as well am so grateful to be a part of this conversation and this roundtable, this group, and yeah, thank you for everyone's creativity and input.
Yeah, I think today's conversation has been amazing. And quite frankly, I feel like we should have an entire series about education and what we're disrupting in the Conscious Leadership Network, because this is so important. It's the core to everything.
Yeah.
It's so important. So I think I feel that today has just kind of cracked open a whole other direction that we can continue on.
Planting of the seeds.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think it's good for other people to see too, because then they're not going to feel like they're isolated and they're alone if they have similar thoughts to what we're putting out there, because then they'll see there's a safe place where you can come and there are like-minded people who will attract our community.
Exactly.
And that right there, to me, in my world of excellence, is what alignment feels like.
Lovely.
Yes, for sure.
Lovely. All right.
I had a,
go ahead.
I just had a little idea about the weekly roundtable or a project based around education. I think that a group document, a keynote type speech could be very valuable to present this concept to the masses in a very appealing and easily shared way. People get to highlight points and do deeper dives through a keynote outline, making the document public, and would also be an attraction module for the marketing aspect of getting more people involved with the CLN and the transformation of the educational system. It was just an idea. I like making shared documents and stuff and doing my writing.
Yes, you do. Yes.
Wait.
I like it. I like it. And there he is.
There he is. Oh, wow. There.
Love it.
Love it.
Look how long this stuff's getting. Locks for love. Locks for love, buddy. I'm doing a promo. Also got to raise some of my own medical stuff, but
that
promo the hair, man. Got to do it.
It's fantastic.
Great.
Love it. Love it.
Love it. Awesome. All righty. So catch us in 2 weeks for another roundtable. The topic is health. So that's going to be another really disruptive conversation. I'm guessing there's a lot to go down on that deep dive. And so as we close it out, make sure you come check out the Conscious Leadership Network. There should be a link below to the landing page where you can learn more about us. And on behalf of the Conscious Leadership Network and the Authority Establishment, see you in a few weeks and catch you in the Conscious Leadership Network.
Yep. And Xavier, what do you have to interject here?
Yeah.
Liking and oh, you're muted.
Muted. It has to do with push-ups.
Yeah, don't forget, if you do not subscribe, you're going to be liable for push-ups. And I'm getting ready to do another project. These are my drawing specs to make sure I can see the detail. But Palace, you got me inspired to go do something else as far as creating something on some paper and see what we come up with. Hercules.
Awesome.
Be good and be excellent on purpose. That's what I want to add.
Yes. Thank you guys. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.